Marketing Communications Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I want to let you know we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. So please write your questions in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we will make them available on our website. Next slide, please. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. Next slide, please. DCL services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, today and in the future. Next slide, please. Our services span all industries. Today we are thrilled to introduce Dr. JoAnn Hackos, President of Comtech Services, a content management and information design firm based in Denver, Colorado, which she founded in 1978. JoAnn is also the Director of the Center for Information Development Management, a membership organization focused on content management and information development best practices. Dr. Hackos and colleagues are called upon by corporate executives worldwide to consult on strategies for content management, development, and organizational management, product interface design, customer studies, web and traditional information architecture, and tools and technology selection. For more than 33 years, Dr. Hackos has addressed audiences internationally on subjects ranging from content management, project management, effective interfaces and information, minimal information products, usability testing, and online and web-based information, to managing the information design and development process. Her workshops are dedicated to enhancing the practices and products that will best promote customer satisfaction. JoAnn has authored Introduction to DITA, a user guide to Darwin information typing architecture, the second edition, Introduction to DITA, a user guide to Darwin information typing architecture, information development, managing your documentation projects, portfolio, and people, content management by dynamic web delivery, managing your documentation projects, standards for online communication, and user and task analysis for interface design. JoAnn is a fellow and past president of the International Society for Technical Communication. Without further ado, welcome, JoAnn.
Thank you, Adam. I hope everyone's hearing clearly, and we can get started on my favorite topic, which is always minimalism and talking about minimalism. I think, as everybody knows, we do a lot of work in minimalism and a lot of research in minimalism, and we also teach workshops, and I know that people are always interested in those, so I thought I'd bring that up initially. The next one's coming up actually in Australia, minimalism workshop coming up in Australia, as you can see on the bottom of the page here. But we have a few other things going on that I think people will be interested in. One is that in January we're hosting the second annual online conference on measurements and metrics, and we have a lineup of 10 speakers that I think is going to be just fabulous. And then the big conference in the spring in Reston, Virginia this year, and then best practices in Santa Fe. And then today's webinar, of course, and then a couple of other webinars coming up in December, February. I think this list is even longer than that right now. Plus workshops, advanced publishing, content management strategies in Australia, and then minimalism in Australia. So let's get started and talk about what we learn about minimalism. I've been doing a little digging around to see where there is support in the business world for the whole idea of minimalism, and I found some interesting places. This will be the first one that I introduced you to. Peter Drucker, of course, is one of the top experts in the world on management practices. He's influenced the way corporations run throughout the world. He's had huge influence on the development of Japanese industry, for example. And he's got a great quote that I think applies very well to the minimalist way of looking at business. He says, "There's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all." And I think in technical communication we often suffer from that issue of doing things very effectively and efficiently and productively, and then not stopping to think, should we be doing this? When we look at how people use information, what we frequently see is that people coming to information on our websites use only a fraction of what we've developed, and it's really understanding what that fraction is that they really want, that minimalism is really focused on. So we want to start with a question. I think, Adam, you're going to show the first question, and that says, well, what is your perspective? What is minimalism about anyway? How do you feel about this? So go ahead and vote. We'll give you a minute. Now we have almost 300 people online right now, so I think we should get a lot of votes.
So JoAnn, with about 45 seconds in, we have about 60% of the attendees have voted.
Okay, why don't we close the poll? We'll give you another minute or a few seconds to get your vote in if you haven't voted already. Okay, Adam, let's show what the answers are.
Okay, so the answers are 43%. Let me see if I can share this. 43%. Can you see that? Yep, perfect.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. 43% of you say that minimalism is about making sentences shorter. Well, I think we're going to disprove that one. Minimalism only works for simple subject matter. Well, there's not very many who believe that, and that's good because it certainly isn't true. Our research in particular shows that. Minimalism means that procedures will be incomplete. Well, not many of you believe that either. And minimalism isn't for people who like to read. That's a really, really interesting response. So I think we have a little bit of work to do to ensure that what we think about minimalism is actually more accurate than this. I didn't give you an easy answer. So let's see what we can learn about minimalism in fact rather than in assumptions. Okay, here's our Drucker quote again. We don't want to be doing things that shouldn't be done at all. Minimalism in brief, right? Minimalism means focusing on what our users' goals are, what they are trying to accomplish, and the scenarios that they might describe to us about how they expect to be successful in finding information. What are they looking for? What kinds of things are they really, do they really need from us? So it's not about shorter sentences necessarily. Minimalism emphasizes learning by doing, actually, rather than reading. And I suspect that's a little bit hard for technical communicators and people who really focus on content, because most of us come to this world as really strong readers. We like reading. There was a wonderful quote from Jacob Nielsen in one of his new books I've been reading. And he said, if you're reading this book, you're not a typical user. Because our users tell us they don't want to read. They really don't want to read. Minimalism explains how to recover from mistakes. Troubleshooting and correcting mistakes and correcting errors is a big part of minimalist agenda. The kinds of things that people are struggling with. And it also includes, if it's done well, hints and tips that are based on typical user questions about how things work. It's not much about leaving out the words. Troubleshooting is heavily emphasized in John Carroll's original model. We continue to emphasize it in teaching about minimalism. It's also the area that most writers admit that they don't cover at all, because they have insufficient resources for troubleshooting, or they don't use the sources they could use. 1.3 in fact, will emphasize a new troubleshooting topic to encourage writers to think about troubleshooting and to include troubleshooting information actually in their materials, in their procedures. So we want to emphasize that and think about the kinds of things that are going to be really important for our user community, because these are the kinds of things we hear about, that we hear about from customers. These are the kinds of questions they ask. How do I do this? Why won't this work? Why won't the way I've always done it work in this new environment? They changed it. It doesn't work the way I expected it to work. I'm trying things out and I'm stuck. Or I don't know what button to push to get to the right explanations. In fact, one of the folks in my office came in this morning and said, I can't get this to work. How do we do this? And guess what? I actually found it in the documentation. And a lot of it, of course, are customers who say, I don't have time. I don't have time to read. I don't have time to learn. I just have time to do. And that's really what minimalism is about. It is that focus on doing, getting to the solution, getting things the way we need them. And what we know very much today, especially with our millennial audience already, taking a very strong role in the workforce, is that they really look at these kinds of issues. Don't make me read. You all know that when people are in trouble, they're going to go ask somebody, first of all, to try to find an answer to their question. But once they get to the documentation, once they get to information online or actually in a book or on a PDF, they're going to tell us, I'd rather skim. There's too many words. Text is hard. That's a quote I heard from a customer. Do I have to read all of this? And certainly less is better. So we've got another question, Adam, our second question at this point for you guys to answer. So let's bring up that question. And we want to, do you know what information your customers want? So this is just a little assessment of where you are in this process of really knowing what your customers are looking for. You can tell me, yes, we've interviewed many of our customers. That would be very positive. Yes, we've interviewed a few. We've talked to them. No, we have little or no contact with our customers. And no, but we are already planning on a customer study. And where do you fall in each of these? So we'll give you a minute to answer the question.
So JoAnn, we have just under 75% of the attendees have responded.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you've got another 3 seconds to answer that question. We're about to close our second poll. Okay, Adam, let's see what the responses are. Wow, now that's really nice. I think it's better than I thought. We've got over 50% of you who have said you're doing something. So this is a great crowd. That is really terrific. I'm very, very pleased. But we still have a third who are saying, gee, we don't have contact. And that's always, it's so sad to hear that because it's so essential. I can't understand any corporation that would say that people who are communicating information to customers shouldn't know anything about the customers. If you can talk to your senior executives and say what you've heard is that customer contact is critical for anybody who needs to communicate directly to customers, maybe you can get them to change their minds and remove the barriers. But a few of you are already planning a customer study, and that's good news. And I'm hoping you'll look at our book on user and task analysis for some hints on how to do that. Okay, but thank you. These are really interesting results. Okay, let's go back to our discussion then. Do I need to bring up the slide again? There we go. Okay, here we are. So, we do know something in general about our users, and that is reading is hard. They don't want to do that. If I'm getting a little foggy, by the way, I do have a cold, and I try to keep drinking some tea here, so hopefully my voice is going to hold out. What do we know about our users today that's really different? One is that the ability to focus in on something has gotten incredibly faster. 50 years ago, it took people 20 seconds to recognize an image that they saw. Well, we are so image conscious with all of the media that we use that time has gone down to 2 to 3 seconds to recognize an image. People are fast. They need to have things that come at them quickly. It works what it does. Attention span has decreased significantly. Surfing the web has gone from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. I mean, that's a 40%, right? 35 or 1/3, 33% decrease in the attention span of people looking for something on the web, on a website. Recognize, by the way, if this attention span is 8 seconds, turns out the attention span of a guppy is 9 seconds. So we're more impatient than guppies. Of course, guppies don't have a whole lot to look at, so except the animals that use them as prey. 15 hours a day the kids spend on social media, online. Even senior citizens have gone from 11 minutes a day to 19 minutes a day. Now, those are the more tech unsavvy users, maybe, but 15 hours a day. Wow, I see it in my grandchildren who are spending all day on their phones communicating with somebody. So attention spans are shorter for individual pieces of information. Paying attention gets to be hard. And there's no more penguins, right? People are overwhelmed that they're getting bulky documentation. What am I going to do with this? And I love this quote. It's just so much fun. Dear sir, I'm returning this book because it told me more about penguins than I cared to know. I hope that people don't feel that way about your manuals, that it tells them more than they need to know, more than they want to know, overwhelmed by the bulk of information that we're giving them in many cases. So no more penguins. John Carroll, who was the inventor of minimalism in information development and training, and now a distinguished professor at University of Michigan, Penn State University, continues to find that minimalism is relevant after, almost 40 years. Minimalism is here to stay. In his essay in 2014, these are some of the things that he said. My research in the past decade has focused on mobile and social computing, and both of these areas demand a minimalist design, mobile and social computing. Mobile devices are small. People expect to pick them up and use them immediately. There's little space and little time to burden users with instructions that are not immediately relevant to the user's current meaningful activity. Social media, web-based services in general, are similarly expected to be transparent and immediately useful. He says, I'm quite sure I can never escape minimalist instruction. It seems less a topic of its own and more a general requirement today for information design. Information on mobile devices, of course, has to be more and more minimal. Minimalism is just plain good design. Finding out what people really do and really want, naturally, spontaneously, means that we can achieve good design. But it's not easy. As many of you know, it's first of all finding out what people really want. Not a simple thing to do, not automatically obvious from looking even at web analytics. What we're finding, by the way, in a study that we're doing right now, is that a lot of people are collecting, and their companies are collecting web analytics, which means, you know, who goes to a page and how long do they stay there. Pretty much those are the analytics, plus the keywords that they're using in search. And those people are collecting that information, but they're not using it. They're not using it to make decisions, to do things differently, because good design is a tough job. It means we've got a lot of things that we need to ask questions about. And we know that as we start out, much of the technical information we develop isn't minimalist. So people are saying, oh, what am I going to do with this legacy information? We produce too much of it for our customers to use effectively. That is something we're clearly seeing these days. Too much content. The content has grown by accretion. You know, more and more people are developing more things and more information in the companies. Everybody's decided that they should be able to write information. Much of it is redundant. We did a study recently of information on a community website, and redundant, you know, the same information being communicated in 5 different ways. Much of it is absolutely even unnecessary. And people are still rewarded for quantity over quality. I know too many instances where the people, especially on manning the support desk, are paid for the number of topics they write. So they write a lot of topics, whether anybody needs them or not. You know, producing much more information that people can actually use. It's a great quote from E.F. Schumacher. He says, any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex, and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. And I think we often feel that in our companies. You know, we're so used to producing the 1,000-page manual that we're afraid to make it 100 pages. And that's what minimalism frequently requires. I mean, the good stories are that people who have reported back to me after being in a workshop on minimalism say we've cut our documentation by 1/3 or 1/2 or 80%. I mean, amazing cuts. And then we find that people are actually doing better. Customers like it more. They're getting better results with less information. So what do we do about it? Well, first of all, we learn who the customers are. We learn about their goals for our products. We develop personas. I'm sure most of you know all about personas to focus how we do things and who we're addressing. And we also, if we're following minimalism, this is a key, we enable customers to do real work right away. We don't focus on making sure they know everything before they get started. And I think if you look at the average manual today, you find that conceptual information dominates, especially at the beginning. You know, some people will say, well, I can't tell them how to do something. I can't get them started because they have to know all these 10 things, all these 100 things. They have to be careful. They have to have pages and pages of warnings and cautions because they might do something that's a mistake or is dangerous. And then we have to give them all of the background information. We have to tell them how the product was designed and how important it is and how strategic it will be for them before that we can let them do anything. And what minimalism says is really about letting customers learn by doing, getting them right away into something to do, rather than feeling they have to know something before they do anything. I remember working with a group of instructional designers and trainers in one of the major corporations, probably one that some of you are in today. And they were doing a 2-week class on working with telecommunications equipment for people who were going to be repairing that equipment at customer sites. And the first week of the class was theory. Nobody got to touch a piece of equipment until the second week. And what we said about it is people were staying away in droves. People were not signing up for the class. It was just so irrelevant to them. Excuse me. And what we find is if we can get customers to do real work right away, then they'll be ready to learn, because before they get to try something out, or hack around, as we used to call it, they're not ready to know why something works the way it does. It's not until later on, if at all, they're interested in why something works the way it does. We also need to remove or hide content that very few people ever access. That is just so important to what we're doing, that getting rid of things, taking it away, is really critical. And we're hearing good stories about companies, big companies, major companies, full of content, who are removing content from the websites. I think Cisco.com is a really great example of a company that has made great strides in taking information down. And I'm hoping that we're going to see a surge in troubleshooting information. I know it's hard to get good troubleshooting information, but it's absolutely critical. I taught a workshop a couple of years ago in Beijing with a group of young Chinese technical communicators. All of them had computer science backgrounds. Right? They were hired as computer scientists who could write in English. And their direction from the corporation was to write troubleshooting or improve existing troubleshooting information that customers were reporting having a hard time with. It was astounding to me that there would be a whole team just dedicated to troubleshooting information. So how do you get started? One of those ways is to get to know the customer, finding out who is actually using your content, if anyone, and what jobs do they do? Not just their role. I don't mean that by jobs. What I mean by jobs is that what are they doing with the product they bought from you? What are they trying to accomplish? What are their goals, their actual goals, functional goals? It might be, getting, let's say your product is a financial program. Getting my checkbook balanced at the end, after the end of the month, making sure that I have enough money in my account. How do they think? How do they think about how information comes together? We want to take that understanding and develop it into portraits. So here's a typical persona that we might develop. Judy is a technical writer. She's developing topics to support customers who are using the software products. She's a specialist in configuration and writes about the configuration setup processes for all the content, for all the products. She uses data maps and topics to include variations. Her content is accessed by several writers who add their own updates. Final deliverables include content from the entire team. However, publishing time, some topic changes are not yet ready for release. So what do we include in these personas like Judy's? The person's role in the organization, or role using your product, a description of what it is that they do, a long list of the tasks that we find out they actually perform or they want to perform. Judy adds new content to an existing topic and adds conditional text. It explains what her goals are. Well, she wants to work quickly. She doesn't want the system to interfere with her productivity. She likes to set up her own workspace. What is this person like? And what's she really concerned about? My area in the lower right-hand corner are the critical concerns. She's concerned about making her deadlines and having regular tasks easily available. When we did these personas, when we helped redesign an interface for the Astoria product and help the developers really understand what the users were trying to do. Now, if I were writing a manual for Judy, these are the lists of tasks that I would make sure that Judy had access to. Primary tasks are in regular type, and secondary tasks are in italic, just to see, to trace those differences. So what do we do, right? And how do we work this out? Now I'm going to show you 2 or 3 examples of people who have been in the minimalism workshop and then have later sent me information of what they changed. So here is a writer who was working on a topic called the anatomy of a unit test. And on the left, what you'll see is what she started out with. She had a number of topics, many of them how-tos, right? How to author a unit test, how to generate a unit test, how to create an ASP.NET unit test a private method. You've seen that, several how-tos. But you also see a lot of conceptual information. At least she started out, she started out in this original table of contents with some tasks. I mean, that was great. But she said this really needed to change, and it needed to be consolidated and made simpler. So what she ended up with were the 4 sections on the left. How to create and run a unit test became one topic, right? Creating and running it. You don't want to create it without running it. The information about unit tests got divided into 2 sections. One about web services and one about private services. And then ended with more how-tos focused on creating a data-driven unit test. And you'll see that that last section had almost no how-tos. Working with, overview, configuring, well, much more focused on what the tasks are. Doesn't exclude conceptual information and background, but isolates those so that people can access them, but only access them or feel they need to access them if they want to. So really strong change in the way this table of contents came out and how the content got consolidated. What I often see, as I said, is a 50% reduction in the number of words and the number of pages and the number of topics in a move to minimalism, and this is an example of that. What I want to show you next is an example of an even bigger reduction in the size of the information. And this is kind of a classic one. My friend from Siemens put this together and shared this information with us after the workshop. And you'll notice that he was getting rid of content drastically, and it was getting rid of content that he said nobody needed. The product had a classic wizard, right? And in version 2 of the content, there were actually 5 pages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screenshots of the wizard, right? Wow. Screenshots of a wizard. Now, I really have to wonder about that because the wizard's right on the screen. The customer's already seen it. Why in the world would they be in the book looking at how to use a wizard? Right? But we see people doing this, very similar, lots of screenshots. Part of that might be because support services doesn't have access to the wizard and wants all the screen pictures, but not the customer, so we impose it on the customer. Well, by the 4.0 release, it was down to 4 pages, right? He was cutting content out. Now we've got 4 screen captures and 3.5 pages, pretty much. So it was even shorter, but it wasn't short enough. And so the extreme makeover that came in version 5.0 became 2 steps. It said launch the wizard, follow the instructions in the wizard, and do what it says. And I think even the use of the next and back buttons these days is not needed at all. There are help buttons in the wizard. If you need help, the information is there. Anything else was redundant. With the GUI, the significant change in documentation. But the 2 steps reflect the amount of instructions that people expect to need for an installation wizard. And I actually think you could cut out most of this instruction, the additional information in the next paragraph. So minimalism does mean fewer words, but it really does mean a really extreme approach, an extreme makeover, to really look at it and say, does somebody really need this? Get rid of the content that no one needs. No one needs, right? How about increasing troubleshooting advice? Here's examples that I thought were well done for people who were actually answering the phone, giving troubleshooting help. A subscriber is unable to send to or receive email. What should I do? Send a service book to the handheld. On the home page, here's how to do it. Subscriber can't browse the internet. What should I do? Send them the service book. Get that information. Very basic, easy to use steps for somebody on a phone who has to figure out how to do something fast. How do you get that service booklet to them so that they can learn how to do this? So I'm hoping they also learn that this person answering the phone might also help them work through what's in that service book. So what do? We give our users, we need to rethink our plan, right? Give users everything that they really need. Of course, we have to know, what they really need. Don't give them anything they can't use. Put in information where they need it. Oops, so I got covered over. Make sure it's accurate, be clear, and be specific, and be short. And, make sure that you're writing things that people are actually going to use. That's what minimalism is really about. Getting our customers to actions, making sure that those actions, that they can perform those actions and reach their goals as efficiently and quickly as possible. Writing from their point of view, not the point of view of the product. Moving things from product focus, focus on how to use everything on all the buttons on the screen, for example, to things that users really want to be able to do. That's really the key to it. So now I've got a little problem for you to answer. And you can put your answers in the chat, and I think we can organize it. Adam, is that right? Can we use this? No, we got to use the questions and answers section. So you can write your answer as a question in the question box. So that I think we'll all be able to see that. And here's the problem, given to me by Doug Kim, our colleague at Microsoft, when we were working on minimalism problem. So not in the chat box. You're going to have to do it, whoops, in the, You're going to have to do this in the question box. Here's the original instruction for the elevator. This was actually on the wall next to the elevator. In order to call elevator to the garage level A, green light must be registered on the car reader. So I want you to submit your rewrite in the question box. And let's see what we get. Let's see if we can make this understandable in fewer words. Does everybody find the question box? Is anybody confused about where it is? Adam, are we finding people answering the question? Or are they still thinking?
Nope, there's some people starting to answer.
Okay, great. Adam, are you seeing the answers? Because I'm not.
I am. So you let me know how you want me to share that.
Maybe you can make me an organizer and I can see it.
Sure, give me one moment.
There we go. This is great. I have no idea what information this sign is trying to convey. Okay, we're getting some more of these. I've got some really good short ones. Okay, this is just terrific. What I think is really interesting is all of you guys who are, I'm sure you've seen elevators like this, and everybody is so confused. Oh. I think everybody's kind of getting the idea that it has a green light. You know, you have to have the green light. You know what this is, of course, one of those card readers that, goes green when you can actually, to get the elevator to come down to your level, in this case. Is everybody seeing the answers? These are just wonderful. We've got some really, swipe your card to call the elevator, scan your card, look for the green light, press the button. To call an elevator, after that, Tom gave up. When light is green, press for elevator, call the elevator to the garage level. Really good job, everybody. I think we've got really good responses here, and some of them, it's interesting how many people are confused though about what it means. But everybody, I think, is shorter than the original or close to it. I think some of you actually made it longer, so you got to be careful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. These are just great. We'll have to choose a winner, Adam. When we get to look at all these.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you all. That is just wonderful. Well, really minimalism is about figuring out what the job is that the user has to do. So what is the job? The user wants to get the elevator to come to the garage. They're obviously in the garage, and there's an elevator, and they want to ring for the elevator, right? Press the elevator button. But they can't do that directly. There's not a button, right? They have to somehow show that they can call the elevator. So some of you got it, I think. Swipe your card to call the elevator. Now, I guess my assumption is that they're in the garage. And use your card to call the elevator. Touch your card to the card reader to call the elevator. To call the elevator, make sure the card reader has the green. Swipe your card for the elevator. Actually, I think leaving out the fact that it's green is probably okay, because that should be obvious. You know, if it's green, it's going to work. You can press the button then to call the elevator. So very good. I think you look at, you know, whoever wrote this from Microsoft Facilities, I guess, had a really hard time figuring out how to tell somebody what to do. Well, what is minimalism then really about? You know, if we still get to that. I'm going to note that Harvard University professors at the Harvard Business School discovers minimalism. Clayton Christensen is just a wonderful, wonderful writer about understanding customers, understanding what they're trying to do. And the story is his Milkshake marketing content. He talks about how to market a milkshake, you know, and the kind of study that they did with a fast food restaurant, a fast food place that actually offered milkshakes. And what they were trying to figure out is how they could increase their milkshake sales. So they had the Harvard Business School students, graduate students of Clayton Christensen, went out to really look at what customers are doing. Look at content the way customers do as a way to get a job done. That's a key comment, an absolutely key comment. Look at content the way customers do as a way to get a job done. It's just like look at milkshakes the way the customers do. They wanted, Christensen students found out why customers hired a milkshake. Well, as it turns out, people who were going to work in the morning and who would have a long, boring commute were hiring a milkshake to give them something to do that didn't interfere with their driving. So to help bolster sales, what the company had to do was actually make the milkshake thicker so that it took longer to drink. So if somebody had a 30-minute commute, you know, by the end of 30 minutes, they were able to finish the milkshake, or a 45-minute commute. So the advice from the business school students was to make the milkshakes that they were selling in the morning to commuters to make them thicker so that they took longer to drink. Now, they also did a study of parents who came in the afternoon after school to buy a milkshake for their children in the car. Well, the job that the mothers and fathers had for the children was different from the job that the commuters had for the milkshake. The mothers and fathers wanted the milkshake to be thinner so that the children could more easily drink it without spilling it all over the car. So the job that the customer wants to do changed in the afternoon with a different customer group than in the morning. So the company could make thick milkshakes in the morning and thinner milkshakes in the afternoon and actually increase their business. So we're looking at, not, why is, let's just learn about milkshakes, but let's learn about the job the customer's doing with our product and how they use our product to fulfill their needs. Well, that's certainly what we'd like to know from our marketing organizations. What jobs are our customers coming to our products to do? Our sales organization and our sales staff are great sources of that information. Our application engineers who are working directly with the customers. What jobs are the customers trying to do with our product? And then, what content do they need to get the job done? That's the focus of minimalism. It's the right content to fulfill the need of the customer to get the job done. So, what are the questions we ask? What job is this customer trying to get done? What are your customers hiring your products to do? Just like the milkshake. How can we get the right content to them to help them do those jobs successfully? You know, what do they use? What information do they use? Well, how do they use the product? And what is the weakest part of that system? Do we have information that gets in the way of finding the things that customers are really looking for? So milkshake content says jobs that users want to get done, leads to goal-focused tasks, leads to short task titles and short descriptions and short explanations of what it is someone wants to do. So now let's look at another success story. Here's the product-focused content. You can see it right away. The organizing principle is the interface. You know, so this chapter is devoted to the administration center interface. And the writer dutifully explains all the darn tabs on the screen. The organization tab, the channels tab, the sessions tab, the reports tab, the settings tab. If I'm the user of this product, I couldn't care less about what the heck the tabs are on the screen. I have a job to do. What is that job? How do I get the information to do the job? I can't even find it. Everything's organized by tabs. Well, here's the change that this writer made in the minimalism class. Organizing principle now is the user job. You can see the difference? Now, some of the topics are exactly the same. Setting up your organization. The organization tree is still there, but it's how to add a master administrator, how to add an administrator, how to create an administrator group, what about how to add a technician, set global password policies. You see that some of those were there? But there's more to it than that. And it's now clear. What are the jobs that the user's trying to do? And we have about the same length, actually, about 6 pages in each case. To set this up and do those jobs. So it didn't get remarkably. What about channels? Channels was 3 pages, and it's down 1 page, 2 pages. So it's a little shorter in each case. Setting up channels, 15 and 16 pages. It was here on 17, 18, 17 and 18, maybe about the same. So it's not remarkably shorter, but it's remarkably better organized to get somebody to the content they need quickly. How to, of course, using how to in every instance does make it a little harder to find the right topic, but you get the idea. Sometimes I get people sending in their first shot at how they change things, and then we can look at it and say, well, you know, you might do a few more things to make it more easily readable. And organizing principles, of course, are the user's jobs and the user's goals. So here's another good example. I love this one. This is this is the original title. Good titles make a difference. And it's one of the things we learn in minimalism, right? So here's one. Creating a batch creator list for the XYZ process. That was the original title. Creating a batch creator list. And where did that come from? Right from the interface. This phrase, batch creator list, is what was in the interface. And nobody could figure out what this meant. We couldn't even find the task because we didn't understand it. So the writer rewrote it. And here's what it became as a user-oriented title, specifying who can create batches. Now, if you read between the lines of the original title, you can see that this one is in there somewhere. Because this is a list of the people who can create batches, the batch creators. Well, if you don't see yourself as a batch creator, and then we get this redundancy, creating a creator. So what was it? Specifying who can create batches. Right. You see the difference? Just phenomenal. Little changes like that. Good titles make a difference because then people can find what they're looking for. This is what I wanted to do. I don't want to use this thing on the screen or in the program. I want to do something real. I want to do real work. And if those titles express what that real work is, it's easier for people to locate. In this one, more content, remove what it is not needed. What we know over and over again is the more content you have, the harder it is for people to find what they need. Find, delete, remove. One team did this, right? The old website, using old English spelling, right? Middle English spelling. The old website was 100,000 pages. This is from Gerry McGovern. In his article from December 1st, 2013, when content audits are not a good idea. It says content audits are a waste of time. Here was an organization that had 100,000 pages on its corporate website, large website, complex, old, a lot of the content old and out of date, and they decided just to clean things up. And they went from 100,000 pages to 3,000. Small website, focused, up to date. And what happened as a result? Well, first of all, nobody protested. Nobody called them up and said, what did you do with that content? Where was it? Where is it? Nobody even noticed that they changed from 100,000 pages to 3. Nobody protested and nobody noticed. Nobody told them this was a big problem or even that was a good idea. But things changed, right? Visits to the new website went up. More visits to the website. People that hadn't looked before were thinking, there's something here, I can find it. It's focused, it's smaller, it's up to date. And the key performance indicators, the KPIs, went up. You know, what that means if it's a marketing site is more people are buying things. If it's a content site, what do you learn? Fewer people are calling support for content that is in the documentation, right? That's a key performance indicator. Customers are expressing satisfaction with the information they've received. If you've got a like on your page or a comment area, they're commenting and they're positive and these things are liked and they're paying attention, and more of them are coming rather than calling customer support because they can easily find what they're looking for. That's minimalist content. Minimalist content, right? So here are the things that we teach in minimalism. First of all, principle 1, choose an action-oriented approach. Make sure that you recognize that people have things to do and they're calling you or looking at your information to be successful. And that's your job, right? Second principle, focus on the user's real goals. Know what they are. Write them in the titles. Make sure that their real goals are accomplished. They're action-oriented. They want to do things. They don't want to read about it. Focus on the action and get them to their real goals right away. And it's sure not using tabs on the screen. Support error recognition and recovery. That's our troubleshooting piece. And finally, support the ability of customers to find information fast and easily and quickly. So in minimalism today, which we didn't do 40 years ago, where we talked about tables of contents as an indexes, we still talk about some of those, but we also talk about search and findability and accessibility, and we measure whether people can find the information they need, and that is really the key answer to the minimalism question. So thank you all for paying attention for an entire hour. We have now some time for questions. If I see most of you are staying with us, and if you have some questions and you want to put them in the chat, I've got a couple here now. Are you saying there was no content audit to remove the pages? Yes, that's what we're saying. They did not, whoops, I keep clicking off here. In this example, okay, sorry for the birds going off. In this example, they decided not to do the content audit. First of all, content was so old and out of date that many of the people that originally created it didn't exist anymore in the company. Even content that had been identified by their measures as useless, it would have taken years to clean up the site. So they just did it. Just did it. So, got it, content. All right, thank you.
So, JoAnn, on the same slide, the next question would be, I'm sorry, I just had it.
Oh, the one that says protesting, if customers protest, not many, but still?
Yes, what if we had protesting customers, not many, but still, should we bring the removed content back?
No. Find out, this is what opportunity, customers protesting, that's wonderful, to find out what's going on. What is it that they're really looking for? Because if you start bringing back the 97,000 pages, you're probably going to get it wrong. So you really want to find out. I mean, the fact that customers said anything is so wonderful. Hopefully they've given you their names. And you can call them and find out what the real problem is. Because that's what's going to really be interesting. But I'll tell you, I haven't come up with a case yet, and neither has Gerry, where they protested. He's got a wonderful case where he talks about a Cancer Society page where they took down content and their donations went up. Nobody protested. How does minimalism count for liability issues? Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I even have the Germans telling me that we have hazard statement pollution in our manuals. Now, they're very conservative. And the attorney at TCOM is taking a strong stance against the use of pages and pages in every task, 5 or 6 warnings, cautions, thinking that it does not solve liability problems. By the way, if your information is really dangerous, what we're saying in minimalism is incorporate the cautions, the actions that customers should take to be careful. Incorporate them in the instructions. Actually incorporate them in the instructions. I've served as an expert witness in cases where we have won major judgments, millions of dollars against manuals that didn't have the instructions clearly stated what should be done. How it's got to be in the instruction. You know what? I mean, there's the researchers, Elizabeth Tabot, for example, people absolutely do not read that stuff. They're not reading it. So it's not going to help you. It really is not going to help on the liability issues. Can I put the principles back up? The major principles, yes. I keep going off the screen here. And that's the principles, right? That's what we that's what the whole class is about. You know, it's going through these and examining your own work. You know, bring your books. That's going to work. There will be a recording, and we probably won't have PowerPoint, but we will have a PDF available. Who was well, I don't know yet. We have to go look at them. I can't see them all online. We'll send out a note and say who won. Do we recommend maybe using a short tutorial as a getting started for software applications? Yes, yes, yes. One of the original examples, John Carroll's team designed a documentation set for people who are wanting to learn to use the programming language SoftTalk back in the 70s, and that's the first thing they gave them. Programming language instructions. People who want to learn how to use a programming language actually want to program. So giving them instructions on how to do that, sample code, things to try off. I remember a website, a wonderful website company, doesn't exist any longer. Got bought out, right? The product I don't think disappeared, but they had a wonderful, absolutely wonderful website that gave sample code. And you could run the code in the website. You could manipulate the code. You could make changes to it, and it was fabulous. How did the Microsoft sign? I don't know if the Microsoft sign got fixed. I know that we had a lot of really good examples of how we could rewrite it, and we do again today. How do you know if you've removed too much content? I think you would be getting protests from customers. There's an interesting case to know about. Several years ago, Cisco Systems did a major redesign of their websites, and one of the things that happened inadvertently, the first day the new website went up, the website developers had actually decided, without letting anybody know in documentation, to only include the content from the most recent versions of the product. And there was a customer revolution of protests going on because, if you if you were using a back version of the product, suddenly your documentation was missing, and the director of information development at Cisco at the time said, the really, really good news of this happening was that they found out and could show the company how much the customers valued the content. Somebody asked, and this is an interesting question, I'm not sure troubleshooting information belongs in the doc. Maybe it's in a PDF knowledge base or community site. Certainly, but I would also say that a community site should have all the information, not just some of it. The problem with a lot of knowledge bases, quite frankly, is that they're a bear to maintain, and they're really hard to use because there's so much outdated information. So, it depends. What's the access for your customers? Is this primarily web? Are you issuing paper documentation? We're getting that. We still get that with consumer devices. Troubleshooting information should be enhanced online. And, you have opportunities to work closely with your support organization and develop a single community site where they can get all kinds of information. So there are lots of possibilities there. Putting it in PDFs, maybe. I'd like to know why your customers are using PDFs. Question from Nolan, what do we have to do to comply to an industry standard where they ask you to repeat information everywhere, including all electric schemas and specifications? Wow. What industry standard is this? Is this a real standard or some company's rule? Or is there actually standard? First of all, ask that question. Why the repetition? What value does it have? How does it keep people from finding what they need? You know, it's really going back to the customers and saying, you know, what is really working for you. Customers don't read, do they view video tutorials? What do they want in these? Well, we had the most fabulous presentation from Hans van der Meij, the minimalism researcher of the, you know, for the world, from the University of Twente in the Netherlands at our Data Europe conference. I just published a short review of what Hans had to say in our CIDM e-news, which you might go and look at. It's online at infomanagementcenter.com. And yes, customers like videos that are under 3 minutes long. So we were looking at a website yesterday and trying to figure out, you know, was there customer videos? Were there ways we could figure out? It's a product we own and we're thinking about upgrading, so we had a real purpose there. So we wanted to know what was new, you know, what was good about the upgrade? You know, why should we do this upgrade versus what was it going to offer us? And darned if we could find any real information. There was nothing but marketing blurbs. There was no access to real content, which was frustrating. But we found a video, okay? So here's this video. And it's 27 minutes long. Well, I listened to the first 30 seconds of the product manager stumbling along trying to say something. I'm thinking, no way in the world. So Hans's student team, looking at videos, short, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Or if you've got something longer to say, you've got to divide your video up into having a guide to where things are in the video so they can click only to that part. We just did a customer study. Customer saying, no way. You know, I'm looking at a video, it's 45 minutes. I don't have 45 minutes. So short. How to do something short. If you go to BuzzFeed and look at the videos on how to cook something that are under a minute, it's really interesting. They want they want a preview of what to do, very fast, instructional steps, and then a quick review. That's the principle, right? Short. But preview, step, procedure, review. You can find some of Hans's students if you look up Hans van der Meij, I can type an answer here, Hans van der Meij, and look at the work on video. Let's see. Do you have any webinars on technical writing and agile development teams? Yes, there are some webinars on the CIDM infomanagementcenter.com, infomanagementcenter.com. You can look at the or at the Comtech site, comtech-serve.com. And videos replace manuals? No. One of my favorites is, you can look at this website too. One of my favorite videos is the one that came with my oven. I can't play a video in the kitchen. So that oven is now 20, 30 years old, and the video is still in the drawer. I don't know why I'm keeping it. Maybe to think that I might go see it someday, you know. In the installation examine, the 2 steps don't have much information. Should the wizards include more descriptive info, or do we just move the information into an online wizard help? Okay, really good information about that wizard example. The steps are sort of irrelevant. They just say, go use the wizard. The information should be in the wizard. First of all, the wizard should be designed with adequate information on the screen. Good wizards get good content telling you what to do. But if you can't include everything on the screen because it makes it too wordy, then you want a help button on the wizard screen. I think that's a really good combination of things to do. How do you help writers who just won't let go of their old habits? Right. Oh, wow. What a neat question, Carolyn. Always hard, right? This is change management. And, you know, I think part of it is showing good results, getting them to recognize that what the customers are saying. I mean, one of the best groups that I worked with decided to do a focus group with customers who were coming to their headquarters facility for a workshop. So they did a focus group, and they're showing customers the content, and the customers are saying, we don't want to read that. That wasn't written for us. That must be for the IT people, because it sure wasn't for us. And the most delightful comment from a young man in the audience who said, you know, reading is hard. Reading is hard. I mean, hearing that helps. Helping writers who won't let go. You know, they want to write books. Part of that might be ego, right? I get my book. And we can't say that, you know. It's not, you know, it's getting customers to be successful. Sam says, if content's getting reduced, how much do you tag content, especially in structured authoring? It seems robust metadata structure would be as integral to making content usable as changing content wording and architecture. Yes, yes, yes. You know, I'm just putting together a new course on writing for mobile and web applications where this matters, and we have a whole section on metadata. We also are doing a taxonomy workshop for groups that are planning and using planning on to use metadata to enrich metadata, coming up with corporate-wide metadata, group-wide metadata. So yes, robust metadata structure, absolutely essential. And we have a couple of things in place where we're helping people figure out how to use metadata more effectively. Take a look at your pages on the website. Look at the code and see if anything is in the meta tag at all. You may find that it's not. First of all, look at the title and make sure the title is meaningful, and then look at the meta tag and say, you know, is there anything there that is of any use? Having good editors who mentor writers helps implementing change. Yes, thank you, Rich. That is a great concept. I think one of the disasters was taking editors away in organizations. You know, it's just so essential that somebody is overseeing. You know, let's look at this as an enterprise activity. It's not each of us, you know, doing our own thing. Do we have webinars for the metadata, etc., for online help in that course? Yes. Do you have any webinars for metadata? I haven't looked in a while. There might be. You might look at the list. It's a pretty long list now of either at infomanagementcenter.com or comtech-serve.com.
And just to jump in, if you go to DCLabs.com, there was a webinar we did back in September around metadata.
Okay, great, Adam. Thank you very much. There's a DCL webinar then on metadata that you can look at. How about the start of a new quote and goal? Reduce the need to read. Yes, they don't want to. Nobody wants to read. You know, nobody wants to read this stuff, right? You read just what you need. I'm in the web development class that we're actually creating right now. It will be a completely new class. One of the things I'm going to talk about is scannable text. If you don't have the book already, a longtime colleague of mine, Ginny Reddish, she and I wrote the task analysis book together. It's called Letting Go of the Words, Writing Web Content That Works. It's a great book, and I very much recommend that for cutting it down. But it's you know, she's focusing on website content, not technical communication content. So it's not all the examples apply, but all of the principles apply to creating scannable content. Okay, I think, Adam, we've got through the questions.
I think I have a couple more that came in earlier.
Okay.
So the first one is, conceptual information is exactly what our users have been clamoring for. Our riders love to focus on procedures which are not needed because the actions are intuitive. Should I forget about minimalism?
Well, the idea of minimalism is to say, what are the user's real goals? What are they looking for? So if you've got an audience of people who are looking for conceptual information, first of all, make sure that that analysis is correct. Or is it only the people who send you notes or respond? You know, what fraction of the audience are you getting to? Let me give you an example of that. One of the things we talk about in minimalism is the stages of use. And, you know, most of us, for most products, are very happy doing three things. Your marketing department will tell you that customers use 10% of the product. Majority. But there always are some customers who are experts, you know, who are much more expert. And they tend to be looking for more theory, you know, more background and concept than the ordinary customer. So you got to be careful. You know, are you neglecting your stage 2 customers who are focused on getting the job done to focus only on your expert stage 4 and 5 customers? You can read about this in our minimalism or our web task analysis book, Stages of Use. Which customers are giving you feedback? Now, what I often find in organizations is that the customers that the developers talk to, or even marketing because they're trying to figure out what the next generation of the product needs to be, are the highly technical, experienced customers. But they're not the majority in most cases. So you've really got to know, are you making the right decisions? Are you listening to the right customers? What about everybody else besides the ones who are influencing the developers? Really understand, you know, that you can't just say, we're going to have only conceptual information. That's interesting. When I look at, you know, talk to people like doing things like Stack Overflow, it's how do I do this? What is the sample code? You know, how do I put this together? That most people are looking for. Are there people who are communicating at a more advanced level? Yes. How much of our time are we going to spend on them? There's a wonderful example that Gerry McGovern uses as how you measure content. You know, that what they find in his studies is that the majority of customers, vast majority of customers, like 98% of customers, are performing about half a dozen tasks, top 10 tasks. That's it. And then you have a long tail of a few people who look for other things. So really know what you're doing if you're going to make those choices. Okay, Adam, another one?
The next one is, how can we apply minimalism to such a doc type as a reference manual? Isn't it supposed to cover as many aspects of the subject as possible? Should we really hide the topics rarely visited?
Well, again, it's the same question, really. You know, the reference material. How is reference? You know, it's got to be easy to use, easy to find. You know, how are people looking things up? You know, people are going to, let's say, you know, Unix content, right, to the man pages. Well, you can only use the man pages effectively if you already know what you're doing. So your reference content is the name of the command. Well, if you don't know the name of the command, just try to find it in a reference manual. So, I mean, there's certainly places for reference information in certain circumstances, for reference information. Or there are, tables of facts that people need, to decide what oil to put in the motor. That's valuable information, but it is supporting minimalist information. This is the supporting content. So if I've got a procedure for how to change the oil, and one of the steps says, make sure you're using the right oil, then I'd like to, send them to a table that has the oils to use for different temperatures, for example. So that reference information is in support of a task. And a lot of users then will come to that because they already know how to perform the task, but they don't recall the reference. Reference information should be for things that you don't want to memorize and want to look up to make sure that you're doing the right thing. I was looking for a piece of information recently, and I went to the manual for this product that I have. And I said, well, I have these little plastic devices have broken on the product, and I wanted to be able to order new ones, and I could find them online, in a store, online store. I could find these things, but I didn't know what size to order. It turns out they were small, medium, and large. So I went to the manual, and the manual shows me how to replace these little parts, which is good because I'm going to have to I'm going to have to use that to make sure I do it correctly because I haven't done it before. New product. But it had absolutely no reference information. The reference information should have been, depending upon which model you own, you would choose small, medium, large. So I had to call the customer support to say, I have this one. Which one of these, what's the replacement part? She said, oh, well, the model you have, you need the medium size. Well, it seems to me that should have been in the manual. So there's plenty of places for reference information. But it's reference information. It's secondary. So make sure it is, it's in the right places.
Thank you, JoAnn. There's several more questions. Do you want to should we answer them all?
Well, we're right about, let's see, you mean at the end here. Somebody said, I mentioned did a 1.3. Yes, it was just approved this morning. Did a 1.3 spec was approved by the OASIS members this morning. We got enough votes this morning to approve it, or last night. So it has been approved. It is out now. And somebody said they were looking at subject scheme. Great, because that's the way you should handle your metadata. And there's nothing new on subject scheme in the new spec. Minimalism and action-oriented content fit in what looks like a paradigm shift back to subject-based content. Subject-based content. Well, subject scheme is the word subject is not, actually the name of that is just bizarre, right? But what it really does is give you a mechanism to externally set up your metadata so that you're not embedding them in the topics themselves where you have to go and change them if the metadata changes, but you're imposing them from the outside at publication time. So you set up your subject scheme with all your metadata and then you insert it into the subject matter. That's a very, very poor, very minimal explanation of subject scheme, but the word subject isn't the relevant word. Somebody's adding tables at the beginning of guides with one column to describe a task, with a matching column with a link to the task. Good. Sounds fine. This would be a nice online tool. What do you want to do? Here's where it is. Click. Go to the task. that could certainly be nice and helpful. So no reason not to. Those customers clamoring for more conceptual info are actually craving better and more complete context that supports the task content. That's a very good comment. Lots of tasks need some context to help people along the way. Whether they read it or not, probably not, unless they're absolutely stuck and can't get further. Just recognize people are skimming, scanning, don't want to read. Usability tests we used to watch people. There'd be a procedure that had 8 steps, and they'd read 3 of them and ignore the other ones because they didn't seem relevant. Okay, I think we're up out of time. Thank you all for sticking it out and for coming today, and I hope you enjoy the recording if you pick that up next.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.